All right. Apologies in advance if my dog barks. I am going to move my office downstairs, so it shouldn't be a problem in the future. But we'll have to get through it one more meeting. So welcome everyone. It is May 11th today. This is SIG Cloud Provider. Looks like we have a couple items on the agenda. So let's go ahead and get started. We can start with a triage of open issues. So let's just see if there's anything to take a look at. All right, looks like there is a list of failing tests that we need to look at. I am going to this triage accepted. Oh, of course, I'm not signed in this browser. Give me 1 second.
I haven't seen the join GitHub page in so long, I don't even recognize it.
Yeah, I actually don't use Chrome for anything. And of course, everything's in a password manager. So I'm like scrambling to copy that over from the other screen. But wait, what is create my account? No, sign me in. All right. All right, let me in. Great. Back to set failing tests. Let's go ahead and accept this.
Yeah, definitely accept this, but I would suggest, Nick, we may want to actually fragment this into one bug per cloud provider, because it seems like we have at least Azure and GCE, so we probably want to break those up.
Yeah, that sounds good. I won't do that right now, but I will make a note.
You can assign the GCE ones to me, and maybe we can find out from Bridget if she's got someone for Azure.
All right, I'll do that after the meeting. Okay, this is the issue that we talked about in the past 2 extraction meetings. So I'm familiar with this.
I thought Matt might join us today, but he must have had a conflict or something.
Got it.
I did poke him, but no response.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and, if it's easy enough to read, I'll let people read for a second.
I think Matt has a PR for this up too. I think the notion was just to always set the annotation. I think we talked about that last time.
Yeah. Yeah. So does this issue make sense to people? Basically, what we saw, which I believe is the same thing, is that kubelet and the CCM will, like on upgrade, will fight over the node addresses on instances when kubelet still has the cloud provider built in. So yeah, what's even more interesting is that like if you have, I guess there might be some cloud providers where you know, you're not passing the node IP to the kubelet. But if you are, that actually filters down the list of addresses. And then you basically get into this case where, well, let's see, I guess maybe it says it in here, but the kubelet would be filtering down to one IP address, whereas the cloud provider or the CCM was not seeing node IP. So it was actually adding all of the addresses, and it would go back and forth between just having a single address filtered down by node IP and then the CCM updating the status with all the addresses, which is obviously, you know, broken behavior. So
I think that the next paragraph too is where they were hitting a lot of problems like upgrading, where the, you know, the KCM, you know, is not, or you know, the kubelet, when it has cloud provider equal OpenStack, it's not adding that annotation. And so the transit between from the KCM to the CCM, then, you know, again, this flapping can occur.
I see. I see. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah. Okay, this is only added when clever. Yeah. So you will see the flapping if, yeah. So we were seeing this before this annotation actually existed, but because it's only added when cloud provider equals external, we still have this occur during the upgrade, right? That makes sense.
Right.
So,
The previous flapping, I think we fixed with the node IP address, you know,
yeah.
change or whatever. But this then gets presented when you're doing the upgrade.
Yep. Okay. Does anybody else want me to CC them on this one?
I mean, I reviewed it, but like, you know, I don't know the underlying stuff well enough to really be given, you know, thrown around, you know, approvals and stuff there, LGTMs or whatever.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your LGTM on it as well. But
Okay, cool.
yeah.
I can try and make, I'll make some time to review it if you want, Nick.
Yeah, would be great. Cool. All right, this is Kishore and I probably. I'm not sure if this is something that we've fixed. I'm guessing it's something that doesn't occur in the load balancer controller keystroke. So if that's the case, you can comment that.
Yeah, this is mostly the in-tree controller, not the load balancer controller, because
Yeah.
we don't run into the leakage issues there. And this is in-tree, so I don't know if we want to fix this. We should look into the cloud provider AWS and see if the issues.
Yeah, and I think we really need to decide what our support model is, and like, you know, if we have load balancer code that we're not supporting in the external and or in tree. There's really 3 places now. Yeah, we should be much more explicit in our documentation about like what we're supporting and what we're not. But yeah. Okay, I have a feeling this is going to be Walter.
For now, at least, I may try and find an owner, but yeah, start by assigning this to me, and then I'll try to get this someone else to own this.
Hey, Nick, just a question after we do this one, can we go back to the CCM issue? Matt was able to join us.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool, thanks.
And let me just make sure I actually, do you want me to triage accept this, Walter?
Yes, please.
Okay, this one looks familiar. Bridget, have you read this one yet? Are you familiar with it? Oh, is Bridget here? Maybe not. Okay, I think she was going to take a look at it. I'm not going to triage accept it. I'll let her do that, but cool. I think that's everything. Let's go back to CCM issue. Matt, do you want to talk about it?
Yes. Is my audio working, by the way?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry for missing the early discussion. Do I need to explain this from the start? How much context have folks got already?
We discussed it briefly, but it might be helpful for you to explain it since you probably have more recent context than the rest of us.
Okay, so this handles a temporary situation during a migration from in-tree to external CCM. And specifically, it covers the case where the kubelets are still running with the in-tree provider and the CCM is also running. So the problem with that situation is that both the kubelet and the node controller running in the CCM will manage node addresses on the node. So if there is any disparity between what the CCM thinks the node addresses should be and what the in-tree cloud provider thinks the node addresses should be, then they are going to flap. So I kind of, I mentioned in there that I think the ideal gold standard implementation here would entirely avoid that situation. So we would have something like the external cloud provider taint. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but the taint added to a node when it comes up. And this means that we can safely run CCM and interoperate with both in-tree provider kubelets and external cloud provider kubelets. So the node controller running in the CCM will only look at tainted nodes, and therefore there's no dual control of those nodes. In this case, there's no existing mechanism to add that. So without adding something new, unless I've missed something, we have a situation where two controllers are controlling the same field on a single object. But we may decide that because this is an upgrade issue, and hopefully this situation isn't going to last for very long, as long as we can make its effects not too serious, it may not be worth completely solving it, and just make it livable and get through it as quickly as possible. And my patch is very much in that vein. So we identified an issue where the Kubernetes, if Kubernetes is running with external cloud provider, and also Kubernetes was started with node IPs on the command line, kubelet, then kubelet will annotate its node with the node IP that it was provided. And this means that the cloud provider can filter the node addresses that it is adding to the node. And in fact, kubelet does this itself. So kubelet running with in-tree gets a bunch of node addresses from the in-tree cloud provider, and then it filters them by node IP. And this was a change in 124 we added, so that now external cloud provider is able to do the same thing, just so that the resulting node addresses are consistent, whether we're running in-tree or external. The problem is that kubelet only applies that annotation if kubelet is configured to use external cloud provider. That means that in this upgrade situation, kubelet is not configured with external cloud provider. So it's not providing, so when the node controller running in CCM runs, it can't see the node IP, and therefore node controller is writing the unfiltered addresses, and kubelet is writing the filtered addresses. So they flap between two potentially very different sets of node addresses, and this causes breakage in practice. So my patch, which I readily admit is a get us through this kludge, simply causes kubelet to unconditionally add that annotation. That means that if kubelet is running, whether it's configured for in-tree or out of tree, it will always add that annotation, so that when we're in this dual controller situation, the CCM can always see that annotation, and therefore we flap between a consistent set of addresses. So still not a great situation, but it's a small fix rather than a big fix. Is that clear?
No, yeah, I think it's definitely clear to me, although we did encounter this problem, so I have some context. And I agree that the ideal fix would involve not having both kubelet and the node controller control the address fields. But I think we can merge this even if we were to fix it. Even if we were to fix that issue as well, like I don't think this would cause any issues, right? We're just telling kubelet to always add this annotation, and I don't see any downside there.
That's also my thoughts.
Yeah, like if we fix
Can I
it,
ask a stupid?
all of them would agree, right?
Go ahead, Elmico.
Oh, I was just saying if we fixed it through another means, then like all of these things should agree, right? Like the annotation and everything. So yeah, it seems like it would be a no op either way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have a dumb question, and I apologize, but on the kubelet side, do we have something like the node IP flag on, or one of the other more deprecated, or one of the deprecated IP control flags on the kubelet?
That is deployment specific. Yeah, it really depends how your nodes are deployed. We hit this in OpenStack on OpenShift. Because firstly, we frequently use multiple networks on our machines. For example, for connecting to external storage. And also we have historically, and therefore it's done, so we can't change it, specified our node addresses on the machine in an order that doesn't have the primary one first. Now, to be honest, I don't think that's actually documented anywhere that that's a thing, but or if it is, I've never found it. But yeah, we have these existing configurations where the non-primary network is listed on the machine first, and we also specify a node IP on the kubelet. So when a kubelet comes up, it knows which of its node addresses is actually the one that can route to the Kube API server. So yeah, it's entirely deployment specific. If you don't have a deployment that is relying on node IP, then I guess this isn't going to affect you.
That's fair. The reason I ask, and my information is woefully out of date. The last time I looked at this was about 4 years ago. But when I looked at this, and I went to SIG Node and chatted with them, the general impression of the community was that, and this had been a recent change at that point, was that the IP address in the node object should either be controlled by the controller manager or the kubelet, but not both. And that having the kubelet control the IP address in the node object was sort of the deprecated pattern. And that's the last time I paid attention to this, and I don't know what's changed in the meantime, but this sort of sounds like, that's why I'm asking.
I'm interested as to how it's deprecated, because like every cluster, like every EKS cluster, for example, uses the node IP flag by default. Kubelet passes the node IP flag by default.
Right. Well, there's also there's a difference between the node IP flag and writing to the node object. And in fact, the node IP flag is not deprecated. It's all the rest of those flags. And again, I haven't looked in the code in 4 years, so I'm not the best. I'm just trying to understand and just wanted to sort of, yeah.
Well,
So
as far as I,
oh, wait,
as far,
shoot, Nick.
I was just gonna say, as far as I know, kubelet updates, like, yeah, I'd be interested to understand what exactly is deprecated about that. But as far as I understand, the default behavior is that kubelet with the internal, or with one of the cloud providers selected, will update the node status with addresses, and that's not like unexpected behavior. And then when you set cloud provider to external, then that's when kubelet stops doing that. So that's where your problem occurs, is when you still have the cloud provider set. And to be clear, the node IP flag is it just makes it more obvious in some cases if you have node IP flag behavior going on in kubelet, and then non-node IP flag going on in the CCM or something like that.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
so in the two normal cases, in the entry case, then node addresses is only managed by kubelet, and in the normal external case, then node addresses is only managed by CCM. And a change we made recently was, previously kubelet was annotating the node object with its node IP, but CCM wasn't doing anything with it, which meant that when you switched from CCM to external, then your node behavior changed. So all we did was we moved the node filtering code into Cloud Provider, and now both kubelet and CCM use the same code, but it's just in the external case, the filtering is only done by CCM. We don't, in the normal case, have two controllers trying to control this single field, only during this temporary upgrade situation.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to understand, and also exactly to the point you just made, I wanted to understand how we ended up with two, and that, that wasn't meant to, obviously that's not meant to be the case. And I just wanted to make sure that we were, properly dealing with it, and it sounds good.
Cool. So I think consensus here is that it's low risk to merge the proposed fix. It doesn't prevent us from some other change that might prevent both actors from changing the node addresses in the case that Matt is talking about. So yeah, I'll go ahead and review that, Walter, if you want to take a look at it, and hopefully we can get that merged as a temporary improvement there.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. So technically we haven't even gotten to sub-project updates. I will go ahead and just go through really quick. I don't think I have anything for AWS. Kishore, if you do, speak up. Azure, do you have anything? If anyone's here from Azure. Bridget's not here. Google.
I mean, we have a couple of fixes coming through. I think you've even taken a look at least one of them, Nick, but nothing huge going on that I'm aware of. But I know we are looking at some of our own load balancer IP address changes coming through.
Got it. All right, IBM.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we merged our two open source repos for the CCM logic down to a single repo back middle of last month. And going forward, we have a single repo instead of multiple repos, which should simplify things.
got it. All right. Looks like vSphere also has an update.
Yeah, we added the E2E test framework right now, just adding more test case to it.
Awesome. All right. All right, Joel, moving on to the agenda. So Joel has the first item.
Actually,
On the-
before we jump past extraction migration,
Oh, sorry, I was just going by what people had written. Yeah, go ahead, Walter.
well, just quickly, I asked on the forum, but I hadn't gotten an answer yet. We are moving the extraction migration meeting earlier, I believe.
Yeah, we took, I think when Andrew was still here, we had taken a vote of some kind. Did we message it to the mailing list? I think we were planning on doing that, but I don't know if we ever did.
I feel like
But
we got stopped after the vote.
yeah, we ended up settling on moving to 9:30 a.m. So I think unless anyone has like a strong objection, we just do kind of a lazy consensus. I haven't heard any objections yet.
All right, then I'll go ahead and move that meeting.
Cool. Sounds good. All right, anything else for extraction migration or other updates that I missed?
Yes, I have an OpenStack thing, which
Oh, perfect.
which I didn't put in there because I don't know what I'm doing. The I have a I actually filed a CCM related PR against the OpenStack legacy cloud provider, which I understand requires act of God to gain approval. But it's kind of CCM related. I wonder if it fits at this point in the agenda. Essentially, it makes a small change to config parsing in the legacy cloud provider so that it doesn't barf if you send it config directives that it doesn't understand. For example, because they're only present in external cloud provider. And the reason for that is because complicated CSI things which are described in the PR. KCM continues to need the legacy cloud config for at least 2 more releases.
I would say, so is it, we generally limit it to bug fixes. So if we can consider it as a bug fix, then there's a good chance we'll merge it. But if it's more of a feature,
Again, it's an upgrade thing. It just means that for the next 2 cube releases before we can get rid of cloud provider for KCM, it means we don't need to maintain 2 different cloud configs. We can just use one, and KCM, in-tree cloud provider and KCM will ignore anything that it doesn't understand as it is. As it is, if the user adds external CCM config to their cloud conf, then their cluster dies because KCM doesn't come up.
Okay. Why don't you link the PR there, and then I guess Walter, I can take a look at it.
Agenda here.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Now I think we can move to the rest of the agenda. Joel, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks. So this is probably more a question for the extraction meeting, but that's a little bit late in the day for me, so I've not managed to attend it so far. I had heard on the grapevine that there were some delays with the webhooks project, so I was kind of wondering what the schedule with the extraction migration stuff is, and when we're thinking of flicking the feature gates so that they're on by default for disabling the cloud provider stuff. And also, where's best to track that in the future so I don't have to come and ask?
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely a good question. Walter, do you have an answer for when on like the earliest we would flip feature gates on by default would be?
So right now, gated, sorry, overuse of the word gate. Right now, this is gated on the fact that the world breaks if we turn them on. And this is actually, I'm the culprit on this one right now, I'm afraid, Joel. So I have a PR that is supposed that is supposed to turn on, have a, sorry, let me start again. I have a PR for the proud to set up a proud job that will actually show all of the breakage. I haven't landed it yet because I haven't actually sent it out yet, so that's my fault. But essentially, we need to send that PR out, and then we need to start getting everyone to take a look at the level of breakage. And I'm also due to write a PR or a document that I'll send out to this SIG first, and then it needs to go to SIG release that explains all of the problems that we have with testing. The issue is that a huge number of our tests are Google specific. I mean, I say huge, it's probably less than 100 of the tests are Google specific. But while we have a working CCM distribution in SIG Cloud Provider GCE, that's outside of KK, and inside of KK, with the KubeUp scripts and no CCM, we don't actually get a completely healthy cluster when you turn off all the cloud provider code. And as a result, quite a few of the tests fail. And so we either need to get people on board with fixing the tests. We need to basically say we're okay with not running those tests, or we need to build a test system which would allow us to push off running those tests to a separate repo that then takes the current code, builds the distribution on top of it, runs those tests there, and then pulls the test results back. And that's that document that I said I need to write. There's an earlier version of it that's actually already out for SIG Cloud Provider, which explains that last option I just talked about. It was written by Joe Betts, and it's called Last Known Good. So if what I said seemed kind of complicated and you want to better understand it, I would recommend reading the Last Known Good document by Joe Betts. But we have those three options, and I really want to write something, get everyone here to agree with it, along with the results of running that proud job, and then engage with SIG release. So that's kind of the what's gating us right now.
So I've seen the Last Known Good document, and I tried to understand it, but it is complicated. Does the webhook work act as a blocker for this as well, out of curiosity?
Yeah.
That is oddly a kind of a call for the storage team. So I mean, the best call for that is going to be Michelle Au. But specifically, that has to do with a very particular legacy use case where a customer, so I mean, this is generally going to be like an Azure, an Amazon, a Google customer, has, let's say, a database with a bunch of storage, and they want to migrate to Kubernetes. and they want to bring that disk with them. The CCM webhook work has to do with extracting the little bit of Kube API server code that allows that to happen today. It's basically an admission controller, not an admission webhook controller, but just an admission controller that calls to the cloud provider code. And so we want to pull that out and replace it with a webhook that does the same thing, so that we no longer need to link the cloud provider code into the Kube API server. It's kind of an edge use case. On the other hand, you know, I don't think any of Google, Amazon, or Azure's customers are going to think it's an edge use case when we tell them that they can't import their database disk into Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have two things to add to this. One is I am planning on continuing that work and getting to alpha in the next release. So that, I guess 125. And second one would be one thing that's just kind of an interesting note on this is in EKS, we actually don't have that I guess it's a webhook or controller enabled in the API server right now. And we have only had one customer ever ask about that functionality. So it is definitely an edge case, I think, at least for our customers' use cases. But that being said, you know, there is a use case there.
Yeah, I know it's enabled in OpenShift. This is why one of the reasons I'm keen to follow that webhook work. And so if there's any way that the Red Hat team can help, then do let us know. Okay, given it sounds like there's quite a lot to do, are we expecting that flip then to be more like 126 than 125? Or is there no real hard, anyone's got a clue right now?
So I'm going to give you the answer that I don't really want to give and you don't really want to get. We're deliberately being a little vague, and you know, message me offline for more details. But let us just say that what we've discovered is the more leeway I give to our employers, the later they do the work, the further out this pushes things. And so if I formally acknowledge we don't have to do anything before 126, they're not going to start doing anything before 126, which just pushes the work out further. So the reason why we're not sort of formally acknowledging the pushback is because I'm trying to generate pressure on certain companies that have been, shall we say, a little bit slow in picking up this work.
Excellent. That's roughly the answer I was expecting to get, and kind of the answer I've been giving my product manager. So fine. That helps me prioritize what we need to work on for the next few months. Thanks very much.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Joel. Next we have Steve. Do you want to give us an update on KubeCon?
Sure. Nick and I are planning to be there physically, and I think if we look at our Slack channel, there were maybe 5 other people who are going to be there too. We're going to try to do this like we did for KubeCon North America, where there'll be an opening that covers the overall cloud provider SIG status. I have a draft deck that's linked in the notes. I copied and pasted just a little boilerplate from the one we did last time, but I'm expecting that the SIG leadership will put the material in there for the overall intro project status. So, and with Andrew gone, I guess maybe Walter has volunteered for a role there, if I'm not mistaken, too. But that doesn't appear to have been updated in the deck. It's still the stuff that I cut and pasted over from the last time. Then IBM has submitted their little lightning talk. For everybody else, it's due. If you can get that to me, I'm flying out Thursday, so I'd really like to have that. If you intend to give me a video, I'd like to have it before I get on the plane, because if I have to do any video editing or transcoding to get it in the deck, I really would prefer to do it on my home system rather than the laptop in a hotel room with lousy Wi-Fi. So anyway, just a reminder, if you open the deck link, you can use IBM Submit as a model for what they might want to look like, or go back and look at the recording in the deck from, what was it, about 8 months ago for the North America SIG presentation.
Steve, I have a comment there. I'm wondering, because in the last one we had, I think, one, maybe two cloud providers do actual demos, and then we had I think a handful just kind of talk through some slides.
Yeah.
So I propose that if you're planning on just giving slides, you don't need to submit it in video format. You can just give us the slides. Is that okay with you, Steve?
Yeah, that's fine with
You
me.
can talk.
Maybe if we're going to talk through it, you'd be doing us a favor if you maybe throw in some speaker notes if what you want said isn't a one-for-one match of reading the audience the deck. But yeah, I concur with that. We don't necessarily need the video. It's up to you whether you want to submit one.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing I would ask is anyone planning, like which cloud providers are planning on submitting either a video or slides and haven't yet? Is anyone?
VMware is, and
Okay.
it isn't in the deck yet, but Lubron is going to get me one. And then
Okay.
unclear yet whether ours is a video or just slides only.
Okay, I will say that AWS is, and I'm going to do just slides, and I'll just read it myself. Google, Walter, are you planning on?
I'm not going to be there, and I'm going to be otherwise occupied, but let me see if Jakob is interested in doing this. I'll check today, and I'll make sure he understands the time, the deadline, Steve.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just let him know it can either be slides or video if he doesn't have a lot of time. Just
And then I believe that Bridget said in an earlier meeting that Azure intended to provide something, but I haven't received it yet.
Okay. All right. Anyone else like IBM or OpenStack planning on submitting anything?
IBM did submit something.
Yeah, IBM already has it in. It's
Awesome.
actually patched in.
Awesome. Sorry for doubting you.
And I'm not going to be in, I'm not able to attend this conference, so I won't be there.
Got it.
And Nick, I'll see you there. The actual time, if you didn't look it up, we've got Thursday at about noon. It's 11:55 a.m.
Okay.
So you and I, when we're there, why don't we plan on maybe a rehearsal sometime within the day before-ish?
Yeah, let's say Tuesday or Wednesday. Let's find a time.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Cool.
If you need someone to heckle your rehearsal, I'll be happy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think
Great
we
stuff.
better go for Wednesday because I am signed up for one of those all-day pre-events on Tuesday. Unless you want to make it Tuesday evening.
Wednesday's fine. That works for me. Let's do that. Cool. Also, we should probably I don't know. We should organize like some kind of a meetup for people who are there. You know, they have the SIG meet and greet thing. I assume that they're doing that again.
I think we can sign up to host a meet and greet during the contributor summit, which I believe is Monday. And we may have missed the deadline for it, but if the past is any guide, we might be able to talk our way into getting a table, even if we did miss that deadline. Now that's Monday, so it's possible that people won't be there by Monday. But anyway, I think that was one procedure to get yourself a table in some room. And if we wanted to make it later in the week, things I've seen before, you could just, the conference I think provides lunch, so we could just make a declaration that we'll find each other at a table at a lunch at the convention center, or we could try to meet during one of the evenings.
Yeah, all of those sound fine to me. So why don't we try to check on the meet and greet thing, if or contributor summit thing. If that doesn't work, then fall back to just finding a time, and we'll post it in the Slack channels, I guess. Whatever we end
So
up doing.
what was your intent? Just a meeting of the people in the SIG who will be there, or do we want to open it up to the general public?
I think we'd open it up to anyone who feels like attending. I doubt we'll get a very large crowd.
Yeah.
But,
so I think the contributor summit thing might not be the best option there, because you have to be a Kubernetes community member to get in the to get the badge tag to get into that area wherever they hold it. So some of the users, I think, have trouble qualifying on that basis.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. We can do something else then, a lunch or a dinner.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we are pretty much out of time. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording, and thanks for joining, everybody. See you next week if you're going to KubeCon, otherwise in 2 weeks.
Later.